Hello, nonprofit leaders. Sarah Olivieri here. And today I want to talk about 3 tips for leading change at your nonprofit. So if you are a nonprofit leader, listen up. This really quick training is for you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sarah Olivieri. I've been an executive director, a founder, executive director of a foundation. I've been a multi-time board member. I'm a #1 international best-selling author and speaker, trainer, and coach to hundreds of nonprofits. And leading change is probably one of the most important things we can do as nonprofit leaders. So let me know in the chat, or if you're watching the replay, in the comments, how you feel about change yourself. And that's what I want you to reflect on for a moment, because my first tip for you around leading change at your nonprofit is to familiarize yourself with your own emotional, psychological experience with change, and to recognize what I want to call the psychology of change and our natural resistance to it as humans. Oftentimes, and you could go really deep on this subject, but oftentimes we resist change because we fear that change comes with loss. And in fact, change often does come with loss. It usually, if we're attempting to do a change intentionally, hopefully we are getting more gain, right? The equation of loss to gain is greatly in the gain's favor. But as human beings, our brains are really averse to loss. So basically, we weigh, if we had a loss was 50 ergs of loss and a gain was 50 ergs of gain, or whatever units you want to be, we would avoid the loss more than we would seek the gain. It's just how our brains work. And so for that and a number of other reasons related to how our brains work, we are, as human beings, often really change averse. Also, when it comes to making change, there's all sorts of other psychological things going on, like recency bias, right? We remember and weigh things that have happened to us recently more heavily than we do things that happened some time ago. And so all of this affects our decision making and our emotional feelings around change. So to be a great leader of change, the first thing you need to do is get familiar with the psychology of change so that you can recognize when some of that psychology is at play in the group of people who you are leading through change. All right, my second tip around leading change at your nonprofit is to get buy-in for the change, right? Don't decide the change and then just dictate it to people. People don't change so well under those circumstances. Instead, you may become aware of the change that you want to make. You may have a plan in your head about how that change will go. However, I do not want you, as step 1, to tell people that you need to change and to share that plan with them. That would be too soon. We want to bring everyone along who's going through that change with as much agency and individual decision making as possible, so that ideally, rather than us, a single leader, having to lead a bunch of people through change, we actually have lots and lots and lots of leaders, if not everybody, being a leader to lead through the change. And we start that process by facilitating conversations to first make sure that everybody is problem aware, right? Aware that there is a problem, aware that there is and therefore a need for change, right? So if they feel the pain of the problem, if as a group you can enumerate how this problem is impacting themselves and as a group and for the people they care about, now we've got some buy-in to want to change it all. Once we have that buy-in, and only once we have that buy-in that it is worth changing, that there is real pain to avoid. Because remember I said we want to use the psychology of change to our advantage, right? And so one of the ways we can do that is by people's aversion to loss, right? So if we can make them realize that they are losing now, we will trigger that desire to avoid loss into a change movement, right? So that is, we really need to make sure that we have that psychological buy-in for the reason, the pain that we're going to avoid by changing. Now we need to get everybody to buy into the plan. And we're going to do that by having them help participate in the planning process. They don't have to decide the plan necessarily, but as many people, if ideally everybody who's going to be involved with the change, should be involved with the planning process legitimately. Now, you may be a super planner and have great foresight, and you may know the plan that's probably going to emerge in your head. And you may have seen around some corners and nudged the plan in one direction or another by saying, oh, I'm worried if we do this, X, Y, and Z are going to happen. What if maybe we tried it that way and facilitate more dialogue, right? But I do also want you to be open as a leader that the original plan you had in your head might not be the final plan. This needs to be a genuine process of giving as many people as possible some level of agency and self-determination in creating the plan. All right. So now we have created a plan together, right? Which means you're going to have a lot of buy-in in that plan. Now there's something really, really important which you need to do in order to complete the change process, which has multiple steps. You need to be very careful about your communication during the change. So the first piece of really important communication you need to provide is, we have decided on the plan, it is finalized, and now we are changing, right? So it is really important that even though you've had this really robust, hopefully group process of developing the plan, the group does need, probably you, if you're the executive director, to come in and say, now we are changing, right? Activate plan, press the go button, flip the switch, right? And you need to signal that clearly, and you're going to need to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. So you're going to need to, as the change process happens, you're going to need to be echoing. We are in the change process. The change is happening. The plan is being executed. Now, just one side note, a great plan for change includes reviewing how it's going and revising as you go along to account for unintended consequences, because there are always going to be unintended consequences. No plan is ever perfect. And when you have that kind of plan that includes review and adjustment, people know that that's there and that's a possibility. So you need to keep communicating. We are in the change process. We are executing the plan. If there are problems, we will resolve them, right? You need to keep signaling this, and you may have to signal this for months. And then you're going to need to be ready to communicate once the plan is complete and the change has, quote, taken place. You are still not done leading change. You now need to solidify the new status quo through communication. Remind people that they have changed. Remind people that we're not going to slip back. Call people out if you see people slipping back into the old procedure. Sometimes it's really helpful if there was a significant amount of loss in the change process to acknowledge that loss, hold some sort of ceremony. Remember that people are going through mourning, and that mourning timeline could take any number of weeks or months or possibly longer, but you could potentially speed it up and lock it in by having some sort of ceremony and acknowledging what was let go so that it is really, we have sent it along, right? And so you're going to have to hold the new space, the new status quo, until it truly becomes the new status quo. And even better, not just you, but hopefully along the way, because you got buy-in, it's not just you, but you have kind of a constituent of leaders who are helping to create the new normal, create the new status quo. All right, those are my 3 tips for you for leading change at your nonprofit. If you'd like tips like these in your inbox, go to pivotground.com/sign up, where I will send you weekly tips as well as announcements when upcoming lives are happening, trainings, and new releases of my podcast, Inspired Nonprofit Leadership, where I also give tips like these and interview some amazing folks who are other nonprofit experts. For those of you who are thinking, wow, Sarah, I want to lead that kind of change. I need to lead that kind of change in my nonprofit, and I need some help doing it. If you are a nonprofit leader and you're feeling that way, I encourage you to apply for the Thrive program at pivotground.com/application. The Thrive program is where I can help you one-on-one, guide you through whatever change process your organization is needing to go through. Until next time, see ya.